Can you imagine having so much power that you could make a queen kneel before you? Not with armies, not with noble titles, but with a simple dress. This is the story of Rose Bertin, the woman who revolutionized fashion forever, and who, without belonging to royalty, made even Marie Antoinette depend on her. And it all started in a small provincial workshop where no one imagined that the first fashion designer in history was being born. Rose Bertin was not born in a palace. In fact, she was born in 1747 in Abbeville, a French town that most had never heard of. Her family was humble, hardworking, with no connections to the aristocracy. But Rose had something money can't buy: talent, ambition, and a unique vision of the fashion world. At just 16 years old, she left her hometown and moved to Paris with a dream that seemed impossible: to become the most important dressmaker in France. In those days, women barely had business opportunities. The fashion world was dominated by men, and seamstresses were seen as simple manual workers, not as artists. But Rose didn't accept those limits. In 1770, at just 23 years old, she opened her own boutique on Rue Saint-Honore, the heart of Paris. She called it Les Grandes Moguls, an exotic name that caught attention and promised luxury. While others created functional dresses, Rose created wearable art. Her designs were bold, innovative, and soon rumors began circulating in aristocratic circles about this young dressmaker who was changing the rules of the game. And then something happened that would change her life forever. The future Queen of France knocked on her door. Marie Antoinette, newly arrived from Austria, was looking for something more than dresses. She was looking for an identity, a way to stand out in the suffocating French court. And Rose Bertin was about to give it to her, creating in the process an empire that would defy all the social conventions of her time. When Marie Antoinette arrived at Versailles in 1770, she was only 14 years old and felt lost. The French court was a nest of vipers where every gesture, every garment, every hairstyle was judged mercilessly. The young Austrian archduchess desperately needed to redefine her image. In 1774, after becoming queen, Marie Antoinette heard about Rose Bertin. What happened in their first meeting was revolutionary. Instead of kneeling before the queen, as was customary, Rose treated her as an equal. It wasn't submission, it was collaboration. They talked about fashions, colors, fabrics like two creators working together. This type of relationship was unthinkable in that era. Seamstresses entered through the back door, took measurements in silence, and left. But Rose entered through the main door of Versailles, sat next to the queen, had tea with her, and told her what she should wear. The press of the time began calling her the Minister of Fashion, an unofficial title that reflected her incredible influence. Rose didn't just dress Marie Antoinette, she constantly reinvented her. She created the famous poufs, those extravagant hairstyles decorated with feathers, flowers, even miniature ship models. She designed the chemise à la reine, a simple white muslin dress that was scandalous for its time because it looked like underwear. Each creation generated controversy, but also admiration, and above all, imitation. What Rose Bertin achieved was something no one had done before. She turned fashion into a global business, and herself into the first celebrity designer in history. Her boutique, Les Grandes Moguls, became the most exclusive place in Europe. Aristocrats from all over the continent sent orders, from Russia, England, Spain. Rose didn't just sell dresses, she sold status. If you wanted to be fashionable, you needed a Rose Bertin design. She developed business techniques that seem obvious to us today, but were revolutionary in the 18th century. She sent dolls dressed in her latest creations to European courts as miniature catalogs. She created seasonal collections and constantly launched new trends, forcing her clients to buy more and more to stay current. Her prices were astronomical. A single dress could cost what a common worker earned in several years. But the aristocracy paid without complaint because a Rose Bertin dress was more than clothing. It was social power converted into fabric. Rose was also a pioneer in something fundamental, putting her name on her creations. Before, seamstresses were anonymous. Rose signed her works, demanded recognition, and got it. She was building what we would today call a personal brand, and she did it with a mastery that would make any modern entrepreneur envious. But with success also came controversy. If this story is fascinating you as much as it is me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Every week we bring incredible stories of characters who changed the world in ways you never imagined. And now, let's discover what happened when Rose Bertin's world began to crumble. The problem with being so closely associated with Marie Antoinette was that when the Queen fell, you fell with her. By the late 1780s, France was on the brink of collapse. The people were dying of hunger, while the aristocracy spent fortunes on dresses and jewels. Marie Antoinette became the symbol of excess, and Rose Bertin, her accomplice. Revolutionary pamphlets attacked both of them. Caricatures showed Rose as a leech draining the kingdom's coffers. They accused her of having contributed to the French bankruptcy with her extravagant designs. And technically, they weren't entirely wrong. Marie Antoinette had spent millions on her wardrobe, and a lot of that money had gone directly into Rose's pockets. When the French Revolution broke out in 1789, Rose understood that her world was ending. The aristocracy was fleeing or being executed. Her boutique, a symbol of the old regime, was in danger. But Rose Bertin proved to be as shrewd at surviving as she had been at succeeding. While Marie Antoinette was arrested and eventually guillotined in 1793, Rose managed to escape. She fled to London carrying with her the most valuable things she had, her reputation and her talent. In exile, Rose continued working. The European aristocracy that had fled from France still needed dresses, and Rose was still the best, but it wasn't the same anymore. The world she had helped create had disappeared forever. After several years in exile, Rose did something surprising. She returned to France. Napoleon Bonaparte had taken power and was trying to restore a certain level of glamour and sophistication, albeit under a new order. Rose reopened her boutique in Paris, but the world had changed radically. The new bourgeoisie and Napoleonic court wanted fashion, but not the extravagance of the old regime. Rose had to adapt, create more sober styles, more in line with the new times. And she did it with the same mastery as before, although she never recovered the level of influence she had with Marie Antoinette. What is fascinating about Rose Bertin is that she achieved something very few people manage, surviving her own era. While most of those associated with the old regime were executed or died in misery, Rose reinvented herself and continued working. She kept designing until her last days. In 1813, at 66 years old, Rose Bertin died in Paris, not on the guillotine as many expected, but in her bed, having lived a complete and extraordinary life. But her true legacy wasn't any particular dress, but something much bigger. Rose Bertin invented the figure of the fashion designer as we know it today. Before Rose Bertin, the people who made clothes were anonymous craftsmen, manual workers without recognition. After Rose, fashion became art, personal expression, and power. She established the business model we still see today: seasonal collections, international marketing, personal branding, and luxury pricing. Names like Chanel, Dior, and Versace all walk the path that Rose Bertin opened more than 250 years ago. She proved that a woman without connections, without family fortune, without noble titles, could reach the absolute top of her profession in an era where that seemed impossible. She didn't wait to be given permission. She simply took what she wanted with her talent and determination. And perhaps most impressive is that she got a queen to treat her as an equal. In an era where the distance between social classes was an unbridgeable abyss, Rose crossed that abyss and sat at the table with the most powerful people in the world. Their relationship was tragic in the end, yes, but it was also beautiful in its own way. It was a genuine creative collaboration. Two women who shared a passion for beauty and personal expression, ignoring the rules that said that shouldn't exist. Rose Bertin's story teaches us that true power doesn't always come from titles or inheritances, but from talent, vision, and the courage to break the rules. If this story inspired you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel for more content about fascinating characters who changed history. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Share this video with someone who loves fashion or history, and leave me a comment. What other historical character would you like me to cover? Rose Bertin went from being a provincial seamstress to becoming a legend who redefined an entire industry. And that, my friends, is what we call leaving your mark on history. See you in the next video.